This is the GPL podcast from GopherPuckLive.com.
They like their little corner of paradise.
Yes, they do.
They're down to stay there.
If I can't take my snowmobile to the game, I'm not going. Making mistakes. I love it. And so I had to train for this marathon.
Make sure you stay awake for the game tomorrow.
And dedicate their building at this time of year. You know, they've got the Wild going tonight, and they want to have that continue. But I said once, where are you, Chi? Can you mute yourself? Oh my God.
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 228. Well, let's bring in Mr. Eric Vigo. How's it going, Vigs?
Going great. Row the boat, Skyuma, go Gophers.
Oh, jeez.
Thanks to Waggle Golf for this lovely polo that I'm pimping tonight, so appreciate that.
Very nice. Very nice. As you can see, a couple more different audio, if you're listening, or video clips in the beginning from last week's show, where I almost choked on the whole glass of water. That went really well. But this is what makes it fun. So, Viggs, we got another returning guest this week.
That's right. He was at the game on Sunday, along with a lot of his fellow alums. A great turnout. Great
and not
turnout
just 2002, 2003 either.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Chorsky there. I saw a bunch of others there that we haven't seen in a while. Well, let's just bring him in. Former Gopher goalie, Eric Schierhorn. Eric, how's it going, man? Nice to have you back on the show.
Good. Thanks for having me back. Third time here. I'm honored.
That's more than your buddy Ramsey now. He's been on only twice now, hasn't he? So
as long as I stay ahead of him, my ego can be maintained. If he gets ahead of me in that, we're gonna have a problem.
Well, Viggs, the weekend went exactly like you said it would. Maybe it's not so much scoring, but the home team winning both nights. Tell us your thoughts.
I know a lot of Husky fans think that the food poisoning thing was an excuse. They tend to have this bias against Bob. Anything that he says, they just say he's making excuses. But I think it was pretty legitimate that some of the Gophers didn't have their full level of conditioning for the series. And I was impressed with their ability to persevere and continue to play really hard through what was probably an adverse weekend for them. Well, I thought playing St. Cloud, they play so tight defensively. For you to get scoring chances, you have to be really, really engaged, and to not give up chances against, you have to be disciplined.
Well, I actually have a little clip from Mr. Motzko from Sunday when he was talking about the little food poisoning.
Would you like to know the source of the food poisoning on class right now?
We don't know for sure. It all happened after a team meal, and it happened to all the guys at the same time. So that's what made us look, and then it was over. Then they blew through it. More ways than one. They blew through it. But it was nasty. And then, so 8 guys, and we had 2 that are not here tonight. So, and that might be the good news if it was, because, you're hearing bad stories on the flu last, and it was just adversity. You gotta have it all if you're going to be a good hockey team. Just figure it out.
Viggs just blew through it. How sick were these guys?
I think it's like one of those food poisoning things where you're sick and you can't keep anything down. And when you've got to play hockey, you need to keep some fluids down. You got to get some energy. And so I think they were just not able to do that going into the weekend. And I think it obviously impacted them. You look at some of the shift lengths, especially like Matthew Nyes, he was coming off the ice pretty quick. And that led to some confusion, I think, because Logan Cooley and Jimmy Snuggerud like to take long shifts. And so they got kind of jumbled up with their continuity, which became an issue here and there. Rhett Pillick took advantage of the extra ice time. I thought he looked really good all weekend. But it was impressive to see them push through it.
Now, Eric, being on many hockey teams you have, that's the one thing that just has got to suck. One person gets sick with the flu, or in this case, you're all eating the same meal. A lot of them get sick. There's just not much you can do about it because you guys are with each other all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You're with each other at the rink. You're living with them. We had something similar. I want to say it was my sophomore year or junior year, but it just ran through our team like 10 to 12 guys all of a sudden dropping like flies right before. I want to say we were playing Michigan. I can't remember when. But yeah, I've been to that movie and it's not fun. And I was talking to a couple of the guys after down below, and they said like 8 to 10 guys were battling it. So, it wasn't 3 or 4 guys were fighting. So that's not nothing. It's not really an excuse, but it's also not nothing. You got to note it. But I still thought they played well. So credit to them.
So 3-0 shutout up in St. Cloud, Saturday night, Vigs.
Basically a 1-0 game.
A 1-0 game. I know Bob said it was an exciting, fun, defensive game. I was bored the entire game. And it just seems like that boredom went through at least the first period of Sunday's game as well. But on Saturday, tell me what I should have been excited about.
Well, again, it was one of those games where both teams were pretty cautious. And yes. I do think that the food poisoning thing is a little bit of an excuse, but the thing that I thought was missing from Minnesota's game was they weren't on time to forecheck the puck. They were always kind of a step and a half behind, or they were just kind of easing up. They weren't going hard into the corners to battle for those pucks when they dumped them in. I thought Minnesota all weekend did a really, really nice job of not feeding the St. Cloud offense. I think we've seen in some of the Gopher teams from the past, in a game like this, they force offense, they force chances, they lose pucks at the blue lines, and they put themselves behind. I think the most important thing for fans to take away is Minnesota didn't do that. They were pretty disciplined with the puck. And at times I thought they had possession in the offensive zone, and they did a good job of having that possession high enough in the zone where St. Cloud wasn't going to chase. And I thought that allowed them to control the game a little bit better and never really let the Huskies get long periods of possession.
Mm-hmm. And Eric, on the flip side, I bet you just love those defensive games.
Yeah, if I'm playing, well, I was the same as you, Jupe. I fell asleep on Saturday. Sunday, I was at the game Sunday, so it was a little better, but Sunday was pretty boring too. But I think it's good though. We know that they can win run and gun, games when they score 5, but learning how to win 2-1, that's what you're going to have to do against, if you look at last year, like a Mankato, you got to learn how to win those games come March. So I thought it was a good showing by them. I thought they actually could have got their ground game going a little better, which I guess you could also credit to St. Cloud. It's not just about the Gophers not being able to get it going. St. Cloud did a good job stifling them. But yeah, it was a boring neutral zone, nothing doing series, really, not just Saturday. It was a whole series.
Well, I did have Pat Micheletti go walking past me at the end of the first period, and he says that was the most boring effing period ever.
Yeah.
He was, of course, he played in the 80s where it was like 6-5, 8-2. He's used to offense, so obviously Pat's a little different, Vigs, but yes, winning offensive, defensive games is great, but I still was bored.
It's tough though, because Brett Larson comes from that Scott Sandelin coaching tree, and when they play a team that's probably more talented than them, this is the way they can win, is to play a tight game and wait for them to make mistakes. I think that the takeaway is Minnesota didn't make many mistakes. Obviously, the penalty expired, the player jumps out of the box, there's a 3-on-1 the other way. That's a critical mistake. You make one more mistake in that game and you probably lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they limited it to that just one is a nice sign. I thought the penalty kill looked better. Ryan Johnson is improving as a player and figuring out how to take away passing lanes and how to win pucks when he sees those loose ones. I thought he had a nice weekend. And I think we saw Jackson Lacombe and Brock Faber pushing into the play more. which is when you play teams like this, you need those talented defensemen that outnumber the other team down low by joining the play and joining the ground game. That's one way to get up there. And I think the lower ice time for those guys is paying off and allowing them to have those chances.
Okay, I'm seeing Mr. Johnson here in the chat talking about the commercial breaks on the NCHC games. We're kind of spoiled here, Vigs, with these, 1-minute breaks during the middle of a period. In those games, we were getting 3 breaks during the period, longer intermissions. I didn't like it either, but really, it's going to be the same come NCAA tournament time. It's going to be longer than the NCAA tournament.
It's good. It's going to be more minutes for Faber and Lacombe and Nyes, Cooley, and Snuggerud. And Minnesota's building their depth over the season without it. So I think it can only help a team like Minnesota come tournament time.
Or the Big Ten even.
Or the Big Ten, because they'll be used to it. So I it's annoying to watch. I love the 2-hour hockey game.
Oh.
The best change that they've made, you talk about getting more people in the building and more eyes on the college hockey game. I mean, that's it right there. I mean, it's not everything, but that is a phenomenal way. I mean, it's great. You sit down at 5, you're done at 7. You weren't watching commercials half the time or in intermission half the time. They just go, go, go. It's phenomenal.
Oh yeah, I love it. After a couple of games, you got used to it. You're like, I love this.
Yeah.
And then it was 4 or 5 minutes into the period, in the third period on Saturday, Vigs, and I'm like, this game should be over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're spoiled here in the Big Ten with certain rules. I love it if other leagues would do that, but when it comes to the NCAA tournament, NCAA is going to say, ESPN, do what you want. You're going to get 3 breaks, probably 2 to 2.5 minutes. I mean, Eric, you've sat there in those games. It's like you get some long breaks there just in the middle of a period.
Yeah. Yeah. The 3 commercial breaks is long. So it depends on the game. Sometimes you love it because sometimes you're gassed and you're like, okay, let me just catch my breath. Water. But other games, it just makes it choppy and have no flow. So I guess as a player, I would be split on that. But as a fan, couldn't love the 1 break more. And I don't think I'm in the minority there.
You're not. I mean, like you said, we get spoiled, and just even from 12 to 15 minutes on the period breaks, I'm like, let's go. I'm ready. I've gone to the bathroom. I've got my snacks. Let's go.
I think the only thing I don't like about the short intermission is it's tough to take your lap around the concourse when you're a fan, which is like one of the best things ever about hockey is going around on a lap and seeing who you run into.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like a 30, 45 second, hey, how you doing kind of thing. Like I saw our old goalie, Dougie Sullivan, he reffed one of my Squirt games the other night. And it was fun to see him. I don't think he noticed me on the bench until after the game, but he's very focused. But it's just fun to run into people in the hockey world.
But Sunday was the perfect day to do that reunion thing, Vigs, because other teams aren't playing. Like Grant Patolny wouldn't have been there if it was a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
His series was over. From what I understand, he drove down from the UP just for that celebration on Sunday.
He probably twinned it with a recruiting aspect as well.
He didn't. Well, he might have a recruiting aspect, but he drove down because
down in Faribault. That might be a slap on the wrist on the home front if he didn't go.
Maybe
when he's 40 minutes away.
But apparently, there's no direct flights anymore. He would have had to go to Detroit and then come to here. So he's like, I'm just going to drive it. So that's what he did.
That's good.
And, there was only a few players missing on Sunday from those teams. Vanek wasn't there. I believe he was coaching at the time. I heard Riddle wasn't there. Little family thing going on. I think his father may have just passed away or is very ill. But otherwise, we haven't seen that kind of turnout, Vigs. Especially, and they did the same thing last year. There was only like 10, 15 guys there.
Yeah, and then they had a nice little family skate after the game, which I thought was really cool to see all the little kids out there on the ice skating around. You got some of the kids, they've got their family names on the back of the jersey, and that's just fun to see as we're starting to see, kids of former players commit to Minnesota and play for Minnesota that I remember playing back in the day. That's just kind of fun to see that next generation have that opportunity. And Eric, you had quite the crew of your teammates there. How did that all come together?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you. We just all kind of, I hadn't been to a game. I hadn't been to a game this year yet, honestly. And so we are all hanging out a week ago or so and talking about, obviously this one's circled because it's such a good game, 3 versus 4 or whatever it was. So we were all just kind of like, let's get tickets and go. I think there was 7 or 8 of us. So it's great. It's good for me. I'm 3 years removed from hockey in general now. And so it feels like each year we start picking up more people that are done with hockey. So it's like, on the dog days of winter, it's like, okay, we got more stuff to do because we got more guys now. So it's nice to have a little crew. Whereas right when I was done, I was like kind of lone ranging it basically because everyone was still playing. So it's nice to have more guys around that are my age.
Well, I got to tell you, it's fun to see a lot of, your team and other team and older players. Like I said, we saw Tom Chorsky there. He was just there just to be there. And then he hasn't played since the early 90s or late 80s. So he's been gone a while and he's no longer on TV, but he came down this weekend and it's just fun, Vigs, to see the old players because you know what? For a time there, we weren't seeing a lot of players.
Yeah, there was a generation that kind of turned away from Gopher hockey for a little bit. They had a little different opinion of the direction of the program. But I also think guys like Chorsky, his kids were still playing high school hockey up until last year. Now I think they're all in college. So it's kind of a lighter hockey schedule for him, probably allows him to go back. And that's why Vanek's not there is, he's got his kids getting into their, prep hockey type.
But he was there earlier this season. So
yes. So he's made it when he can. But you just see that with the different ages of people. But I think Bob has definitely got some strong support from the alums now. Bob's a very man of the people kind of guy, and I'm sure everybody felt pretty welcome. I saw a bunch of players heading down to the locker room after the game to enjoy in the victory, so probably good vibes down there, right, Eric?
Yeah, for sure. And I think part of it too is they've done a great job with the alumni events, like the golf tournaments that have happened the last couple of years, and I think they had like a wine tasting or something. I couldn't go to that one, but they've done a really good job putting on events and bringing people together and keeping them connected to the program. Of course, I don't know any different really because this is, I'm fresh out. I don't think there was much of that stuff before, but Bob and Gordo and Paul Martin and the whole staff have done a really good job of kind of getting people together in summer and events like they did for 02-03. Sunday night. So, I think they're seeing the benefits of it and people are feeling welcomed and want to go. And honestly, why wouldn't you want to go when the team looks like this too? Like that's the other aspect that you can't discount. It's like that team's fun to watch.
The only other thing I wish school would have been in session because that student section has been crazy.
Yeah.
Except for when they're not in session. It was pretty weak. Even the band was a little thin on Sunday, Vigs, but we've been talking about the student section for about the past year and a half, 2 years, how much better they've gotten. It would have been amazing there, but I think we're going to see that in a couple of weeks when Michigan comes to town.
Yeah, I think the student turnout was the only kind of disappointing thing for me from the weekend. I was hopeful that they'd turn out because I talked about last week how the fans had shown up for football games when typically, they're on break or away for holidays like Thanksgiving or whatever, and they showed up still for those games. I was expecting that they would show up for the St. Cloud game and they oversell the section, but it was a little thin for me.
Some news today, V. So we got a kid who committed. We've got some new NCAA rules that just came through. They're going to start, effective July 1st. Let's talk about that. Looks like the NCAA approved one more paid position for NCAA hockey. They tried to do 2, but they got 1. That's effective July 1st. And then they also tweaked the transfer rules. You can get one kind of free one, but the second one, it looks like you need some type of waiver or something like that to to transfer a second time. What are your thoughts on what the NCAA did or released this afternoon?
I haven't looked too closely into the waiver situation, but I know that extra paid position has been talked about for a long time. And I know a lot of the coaches were looking for it. I think the schools can use it for a goalie coach, which is typically a volunteer position. They could use it for a recruiting coordinator or someone who's a paid position to go out and recruit, because a lot of USHL games are at the same time as college games. So with that travel, it's very difficult to get out and get your brand out there and stay in touch with contacts and stay in touch with commits who might be flipping and things like that. So those are kind of the two big areas where I think they might add the position. I know that goalie coaches around college hockey are probably grinning at this because it's such a tough thing to be there every day as much as you can for practice with college goalies and not get paid. I think it helps their brand and helps them coach their clinics and things like that and run their goalie schools and camps and get their equipment and stuff. But still, that's a lot of time put in right now that was volunteer.
Corey's thinking they should lock up Paul Martin with it. I don't. I'm thinking goalie coach is more important. Maybe Eric, are you interested in coaching?
Maybe now, right? Maybe now you get paid for it.
My qualifications line up with Paul Martin, so I'll let Paul take the fourth spot instead of me. But no, I agree. I think it'd be nice to see it used on goalie coaches. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but when I was in school, our goalie guys, made it 2, sometimes 3 times a week, and they'd go on trips occasionally, but like they were volunteers, right? So it's good for their brand and all, but I mean, at a certain point, it becomes not worth it too. With all the other stuff that they have to do. And also too, like, it's great because we're in Minneapolis, we're surrounded by goalie coaches, but what about, the Mankato's of the world where their volunteer goalie coach might have to be driving from the cities and stuff like that. So I think it helps, if anything, well, if they use it on goalie coaches, it helps schools like that who don't have access to the coaching that maybe we do or University of Michigan does, just being in a hockey centered city. So I think that's a really good aspect of it. Now, whether teams use it or not on a goalie coach is to be determined. We'll see how many go that route. I would think it's worth it. Why wouldn't you? But I'm sure a lot of them will want to add another assistant. Because I mean, it's tough, right? Like, you have 3 paid coaches and one of them's got to be on the road damn near all the time recruiting too. So it's like you really only have 2. So I could see the angle of wanting another assistant to mainly be recruiting, so you could have your 3 main guys there the whole time. So that'll be interesting to see how different schools handle that.
And we've seen a lot of that, Viggs, with said former pro. A lot of times we'll see him on the bench on the weekends and one of the other coaches are not there.
Yeah, I don't want to diminish what Paul contributes to the program, but I mean, he did have a long NHL career where you get paid lots of money to play hockey, and he is, pursuing some degrees still, and he's still a student. I don't know how long that's going to last. It's kind of a luxury, I think, for Minnesota to have a guy like that around. But I don't know if it's as important as having that recruiting coach or that goalie coach. We'll see what's going to happen. I know a lot of coaches wish they didn't have to choose between the 2, but that's where they're at.
And some won't do anything, will they, Viggs? I mean, it's costs money, and hockey's an expensive sport. And, some of the smaller schools are going to say, will they invest in something like that?
Well, it might be something, almost like a stipend type situation where they are going to get compensated a little bit. That's the luxury of being in the Big Ten, though. You look at the top 10 schools for expenses in college hockey, all the Big Ten schools are pretty much in there. So that's the benefit of being, a big P5 institution.
I bet you like that, Eric. You guys were flying to pretty much every location.
It was great. We're spoiled. When you leave, it's not so fun going back to the club. I can tell you that for free. Yeah, it sucks. But we're lucky. And you look at too, like Vig said, and you would know better than me, Viggs, but like, I don't know, maybe 5 NCAA D1 hockey teams run a profit too. So like, not many teams are probably super willing to fork out a regular salary for a fourth coach. So you're right. I would imagine there's a large chunk of teams out there that won't actually do anything with it, or will do something small like a part-time salary type thing.
Yeah, I think that's what we're more likely to see with those other schools. They'll be able to pay something, but it won't be like a full-time gig like some of these bigger schools in the Big Ten and NCHC and Hockey East.
All right, in the other news today, actually the later this afternoon, Jackson Nevers did a little verbal commitment today, Viggs.
Yeah, I noticed he was on campus today for an extended amount of time. He was there before practice. He was there during practice.
He's just seeing brother around. Play.
Yeah. Well, Mason wasn't at practice today. So Mason Nevers was not out there. But the rest of the Nevers clan was.
Meaning Mason hasn't blown through the illness, maybe?
Maybe. We'll see what happens with him. But I think it's a happy moment for the family. Jackson's had a really nice year for Edina High School. They're a top 10 team. Kind of a surprise, I think, in high school hockey. They weren't really seen as a top 10 team at the start of the year, I think. And I think they've gotten their act together and they've had some good results. And Jackson Nevers is a big part of that. And, I think some players are told, make sure to explore all your options. Just because dad went there and your brother's going there, maybe it's not the right fit for you. Keep your options open. But he obviously made his mind up today, and he's a Gopher.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, but it's got to be tough, though, to not follow suit. I mean, we knew about dad in high school. His dad was very good. Ended up playing baseball and all that whole other thing because he's a multi-sport athlete. At least some of us old people remember.
I had the Tom Nevers Astros baseball card.
There you go. Yeah, so some of us old people do remember Tommy Nevers because he's pretty much my age or close to it. And it would be tough for him to go to another school.
It would be, but sometimes you want to get out of the shadow and make your own mark. But he's a talented forward. I think he was one of the top uncommitted kids for his age that was out there. So I know a lot of people on GPL and that follow the Gophers were happy to see him finally make up his mind.
Okay. Well, that sounds good to me. Nothing wrong with that. So, Eric, you were telling me before we started the show that you had a little pickleball you were playing earlier tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And you're playing with some former players? What's going on there?
Yep, Chipotle Cup Series. It's me and Sam Rossini versus Tyler Nanny and Jack Sadik, and the currency is Chipotle. Winner gets Chipotle. So Sam and I took the cake tonight, which was our first in like 4, which I hate to bring up. But yeah, getting some pickleball in at Lifetime before. It's great.
I've got to start playing that.
Taking over.
I've played it once and I enjoyed it.
It's great. It's us and all the 60-year-olds there, but it's fine. We're having a great time.
It's the biggest growing sport.
Yeah.
I mean, our favorite North Dakota writer, Mr. Schlossman, he loves the pickleball, doesn't he, Viggs?
He is big on the pickleball. Even when he travels, he's looking for a place to play. So I think we need some more Minnesota people to step up their game and just, tell them where it's at. So keep practicing. I hear Brad's pretty good. So,
I'm sure he is because he's young and been playing for a while and whatnot. All right, guys, split last weekend. Now we head to Notre Dame, and Viggs. This Notre Dame team has definitely been a Jekyll and Hyde team this year. Played good, bad one night, played good the next night. But overall, it sounds like that team's kind of been a disappointment for you.
Yeah, I thought they might be competing with Minnesota for the league this year. You looked at their roster coming back. They have an older team, and Jeff Jackson's teams, when they're older, are typically very difficult to beat. They're very stingy. Mm-hmm. They're very good on faceoffs. They're very good on special teams. They're very good on faceoff plays, and they're tough to compete with. And this year, just too many splits for them. And I don't know what's going on. I haven't watched them very closely. But, when you're splitting with Wisconsin, Alaska, that's not great. They did play a tough schedule. and they get credit for that in the strength of schedule and the pairwise. So they're not out of it, but I think it's definitely disappointing from what I thought coming into the year.
Yeah, I was hoping they would be a little stronger too, because the Gophers did take care of them fairly easily a couple months ago when they came into town, and it was just they just haven't been able to right the ship. Maybe Michigan's kind of in a similar situation, Viggs. They're kind of far behind in the standings. It might be tough for them to catch up. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Eric, what is a memory of yours going to Notre Dame?
Ooh, you're putting me on the spot.
I know, that's what I do.
Yeah. You're messing up. I had a bunch of stats for my homework. I'm a stat guy. I don't know if you knew that.
We'll hear those too, but I want to hear your personal story of success or failure at Compton.
I was gonna piggyback. Well, honestly, the first memory that comes to mind is they ended our season my senior year on that tough hooking call for Sheehy, and then they scored in overtime on the power play.
Yes.
That was brutal. It was a stick lift, textbook stick lift. Called it a hook.
It was under the stick too, not on the hands.
So
terrible.
Thanks for bringing that up. But well, I was going to piggyback on Viggs, and just they're pretty unimpressive, honestly. I was surprised to see where they were in the pairwise relative to kind of how they've gone about their schedule. They're 35th in goals against and 45th in goals for, or something like that. Maybe those are interchanged, so they don't really do anything well. It seems like every weekend for the last 3 months has been good one night, bad the other. And so I don't know. They're not scary at all, really.
Mm-hmm.
They'll try to get one or two and lock it down, and I don't really see them being able to do that against the Gophers.
By the way, Tyler Sheehy had a great sense of humor about that penalty, because for a couple of years after that, some weird penalty would happen, and I would blame Sheehy just for fun on Twitter. And every time he liked it, because he kind of got the joke that it was just a total BS call. So
he had a great sense of humor on the ice after that. I don't think anyone did. Bob almost slipped on the ice going after the refs. Someone had to bring him in. That was funny. It wasn't funny at the time, actually.
Oh, it wasn't funny. Obviously, it ended the season. It's not going to happen this weekend, Viggs. I really think that Minnesota can solidify the Big Ten by going in and getting 6 points this weekend.
Yeah, I heard Bob talking today, and his focus on win every series the rest of the way, and we control our destiny.
Yes.
That's key on their mind is let's win the series. And it starts with one game. And I think that's how the team has to look at it, because when you're playing a team that's up and down, if you take care of them the first night, the second night, maybe they'll find their legs and find their brains and give you a hockey game. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they show up the first night and give you a hockey game and disappear the next. You've got to come into a weekend like this and take it seriously and don't get away from your game. Despite how bad Notre Dame has looked, we've seen them play good hockey. And I've never seen Jeff Jackson more disappointed than after the series with Minnesota early in the year. So you can bet he's got this one circle on his calendar and he is scheming for this weekend. So I don't think they can take their foot off the gas, and they just have to play a smart, deliberate game and be on time on the forecheck this weekend. I thought that's what was missing in the St. Cloud game from them maybe being able to break something open. That's how Minnesota got so much pressure on Michigan, was being on time with the forecheck and putting their defensemen under pressure. I don't think they did that last weekend, and they have a big opportunity to do that at Notre Dame.
Did the junior players get some rest this week?
Yeah, they were locked out of the equipment Monday and Tuesday. So today, I think, was their first day on the ice. The players were around, but they weren't allowed to skate or practice. So, and now, they're dealing with some sort of flu bug that might not be food poisoning with the team now too. So they're kind of taking it easy over there.
It's the time of year, once it hits one player, or you give it from another player in another team. I mean, you just got to play through it, right, Eric? You just got to, Do your best.
They have the depth, I guess. That's a good thing. And you get guys who maybe haven't gotten a lot of reps, get some more reps and some more minutes, which I guess, I mean, you can't just go into Notre Dame thinking it's gonna be a cakewalk, but like it could be a situation where it's advantageous actually to be up in the third and get the third and fourth line guys some more minutes and some more experience on the road against a Big Ten opponent. So I mean, they got to get there first, but it could end up being a positive, I guess.
Would they bring all 3 goalies, Viggs? What's the rule on that? Because technically one goalie is sick. You need a backup.
Yeah, I think they need 25 players on the traveling roster for Big Ten. So they might have to sacrifice a couple guys to get that.
Well, we would always travel with 3 goalies anyways for that reason. Because I mean,
Okay.
if one goes down, you're screwed. So like 3 is the baseline, I think, unless that's changed since I've left. I would imagine
I think it's more about just dressing goalies, isn't it, Viggs? That's more
dressing. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but there is a travel limit for the Big Ten that's not there for the non-conference games. So some guys are going to have to stay home. So if it's Fish and Schmidt or something like that, we'll see what happens exactly. But they can't travel with everybody available just in case. When you get sick like this, you have to have guys make decisions. Are they good enough to go? And I think that's why some guys have been held out of practice. Yeah, I think that's why some guys have been held out of practice just to hopefully blow through whatever they have right now. Because that's what I do hear is that whatever guys are getting, they're getting over it quick. It's just not very fun when they're sick. So
it's just how it is this time of year. Hits every team almost every year. Some kind of flu, some kind of bug. It goes through. A couple of years ago, it was obviously COVID, which is a little bit different, especially with how everything was going at that time. So
I worry a bit about Logan Cooley's legs. He admitted it on Sunday night that he was, feeling the jelly in his legs when he was trying to get going during the overtime. But obviously he was able to fight through it. Snuggerud, I'm not as worried with because his shot is what makes him so dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I was at practice today. Confirmed his shot is still effective. He was still ripping it from all over. So I think they're just fine there. And I think Nyes is back to full strength. He looked good today.
And you and I were watching the game on Saturday. We were noticing Nyes was going off earlier. I mean, actually, Nyes was probably going off when you wanted him to, didn't he, Viggs?
Yeah. I mean, they should be taking that 50-second shift. What you'd see is, the Gophers would get out of their zone. They'd get that scoring chance. They'd come back to the D zone. They would gain the puck, and he'd be off right away. And, Cooley and Snuggerud are still out there chasing that one more rush on their shift when probably a coach's brain is saying, hey, it's time.
What do you think their average shift length is? Do we got stats on that?
Oh, that would be good.
They have some long shifts. I mean, you can kind of do it when you put up that many points, but they have some long shifts.
But Viggs, you've caught them. They've been caught many times giving up a goal.
Yep, they've been caught out there for about 1:40 a couple times and give up a goal. I would bet their shift length averages about 1:15. I know Instat does track that. Brad Schlossman has shared some of that data with me at certain points of the year because he's a subscriber or somehow the Grand Forks Herald gives him that privilege to get that access. So he has it and he shared it with me. It's long. It's significant. It's interesting to look at that stat, how much ice time Cooley and Snuggerud get. Nyes is a little bit lower. And you also see that Faber and Lacombe are back down in that 20-minute range. Whereas I think last year they were up in that 25, 26. So that's interesting to see.
Don't you goalies ever get tired out there? I mean, seriously. Yeah. I mean, I guess if there's a lot of flurries and a lot of pressure on you, you do. But you guys, it's not like you're getting line changes. You're stuck out there.
Yeah, you can get hemmed in pretty good there. Your legs start getting on fire if you're in a 2-minute shift or in zone or a 5-on-3 type thing. But I mean, you also get rest too, right? When it goes down to the other end, so it's not too bad.
Got to be in shape. You
It's
can't
hot. It's honest. It's hot in all the gear, and I'm a sweater too. I just leak in my gear, so I lose so much water and whatnot. That was the biggest thing for me. Is just always being overheated.
and it depends on the arena too, because
For sure.
I got the when they had the lockout all those years ago. The Wild allowed people to come in and do free skates. So a bunch of us, Viggs, did you skate that one?
Yeah, I played in a couple there.
The arena was just, even with nobody in it with gear on, I was boiling up in there.
Yeah.
And
you can see why Jake Middleton runs hot and has got to go tarps off.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, you've got all that gear on, and obviously it's gotten lighter. It's gotten better over the decades. I can't imagine some of those old goalies with the leather pads all those years ago. But you're right. It's not exactly cool down there.
No, it's not. The NHL rinks are worse too. I guess the only experience is the Joe and the X, but they're noticeably worse too. And Mariucci's not great either, just because the bigger the rink, I feel like the worse it is, or the newer even. But yeah, it's not great, not fun. Or Ohio State's is bad too because it's dual purpose, right? They got the basketball in there too, so it's not straight hockey focus. So that one is actually maybe the worst in the Big Ten. Them or Wisconsin. Wisconsin's bad too.
Because it's not like you're moving either. You're pretty stationary. At least when you're moving, you kind of got a little
easy
breeze.
With that. What do you mean stationary?
Well, you don't have a big breeze going up and down the ice. At least that kind of helps a bit.
That's true.
If you get a breeze, you're not in the right spot.
You got to throw some water down the back. That's the key.
Oh.
So speaking of rinks, what do you think about the controversy in the NHL right now with all the goalies lifting the nets off and knocking nets off? Because you brought up Ohio State. They've got some serial offenders over there for knocking the pegs off, and I think there is some shenanigans happening in the goalie community. Are you going to speak on that?
In the goalie community,
as a former goalie?
I got to ride with Goalie Nation, but I would say from my experience, me personally, I would never the game is moving so fast, and that's the last thing I was focused on. And so if it comes off, it's genuinely a mistake. I think it happens to some guys more than others because they just naturally go into the post harder, or they use the post as an anchor more than some. So for the most part, I really do think, just based on how a goalie plays, they're going to knock it off more than others. And if it's in the heat of a play, they might give it a little extra kick if they've been hemmed in the zone. But it really is the last thing you're thinking about. You're focused on making a save. But I mean, I don't doubt it.
Mariucci's pegs are brutal. Yes, we know, Dan.
Yeah. That's the other thing is some rinks don't have their peg situation figured out.
Well, Mariucci went downhill when Don moved the red line back to the NHL distance, because it was international distance, and there was even more space behind the goal, which he didn't want. So those pegs they're not the original pegs. There was kind of jerry rigged in there to not hit a pipe underneath, because that's not what they originally were.
Gotcha. I didn't even know that. Yeah, blame it on Don. There you go.
Yeah, because the international rule is it 15 feet out from the back, Viggs? It's something close to that.
I can't remember exactly, but it is deeper.
It is deeper, yes.
And you get in that corner when the nets are there.
Yeah, when they pulled it back, that's why they had to also, obviously, they had to shift the goals just a tad bit, because they didn't want to. Craig Flores telling me that the guy who was drilling the holes when they did that was really nervous because he didn't want to hit anything.
Mm-hmm.
And he was even saying this past weekend, when they redo Mariucci, they might plan for, hey, let's put some holes a little further. Let's put some holes a little bit back further in case someone in the future wants to move them, because they'll already be there.
Yeah, the big thing with the international is where the radius of the corner ends, where the boards get straight again and it's no longer curving. That's where the goal line was. So next time you're at Mariucci, imagine the goal line being at that spot on the ice.
Yes.
The boards are straight again and not curving anymore. because I remember playing in an NHL rink like Excel and seeing how tight the corners were. After playing most of the rinks I'd played in, they weren't as tight of a radius, and it was just like, wow, you really get into the play really quick coming out of this corner. And that's what the NHL wants. They want that play coming faster to the net from those positions.
And there aren't many rinks that were like Mariucci. I mean, yes, St. Cloud was Olympic size, but their corners are not Olympic size.
Right.
Their corners are.
Same with Wisconsin too, right? Wisconsin's hybrid, right?
Yes.
It's very slightly hybrid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like 98 feet or something like that.
But yeah, everything went wrong at Mariucci when he changed the red line.
Yeah, apparently. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. But I know that the NHL is tagging all their game clips when the net comes off because they're investigating goalies. So they're under double secret probation.
Under fire.
What was the video we saw this week of him just working the goal?
I did see that one. That one, I mean, I can't imagine that he just knocked the net off that blatantly. My guess would be that he thought.
Well, he was trying to loosen it so it would come off easier, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I thought when I saw that video, I was like, well, either this guy's nuts and he's just knocking off the net like this, or he thought it was loose before and that it would come off, and he was just like, here, I'll save us all the time. Because that can mess the goalie up too, because if you're sliding into your post and the net's not on correctly, again, you can't really anchor as you should or as you'd like. But now I'm just making excuses for Matt Murray.
And Tommy Napier.
Yeah, Tommy Napier too.
Was that Napier for Ohio State?
Yeah. He used to knock the net off all the time on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of style, a little bit of gamesmanship. You just got to play it to the edge.
I don't think he ever got called for it, though. He got warned.
I don't think I've ever seen someone called for it. Because, how can you – if you're going to call that penalty, especially in a close game, you better be damn sure that guy's knocking the net off. And I don't know how you could say that, because every move – I mean, unless the goalie's an idiot, every move into the net that knocks off the pegs is a natural goalie move, right? Mm-hmm. So it's how are you going to call the guy on it unless he shoves it off like Matt Murray did the other night?
And I've heard officials, when they ref at Mariucci, they know that the pegs are brutal. Yeah. And so they give a little bit more leeway. And I think some goalies know that coming in and maybe take advantage of it.
Oh, Napier. We had fun with Napier. At least I did. I'm sorry, he was not 220, Viggs. I'm sure he was 240. He was a big kid.
I'm sure he fluctuates.
Yeah, he needed to mix in a couple salads.
When you're a big body, it goes up and down pretty quick.
Yeah, when I look at my body, I know when someone else needs to mix in salads too. So, so that's how it is. All right, how about some predictions for the weekend? Mr. Schierhorn, what do you think the Gophers are going to do this weekend?
I mean, even if I didn't think it was a sweep, I'd probably say it was a sweep. Just full transparency. But, I mean, it's got to be a sweep against these guys. I think a handy sweep, too. I don't know. I'll even give you goals for, goals against. I'm going to say the Gophers put up 10 and give up 2. Might be a 5-1, 5-1 series.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's how I'm feeling.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I predicted it a sweep last weekend, Viggs. It didn't work out, so save me here.
I think we're seeing sweep this weekend. Minnesota has played very, very well against Notre Dame, especially at Compton Family Ice Arena. I don't know what it is exactly that does it, but I feel like Notre Dame's style almost gives Minnesota so much space that when Minnesota plays with their skill against them, it just shines. And it's a weekend for the skilled players to take advantage of the opportunities that they get and put the puck in the net. I think we probably see a shutout in one of the games this weekend with the defensive structure that Minnesota's playing and the decision-making that they're displaying out on the ice. I think we'll probably see something like a 4-0, 5-1 game as well. I think Eric's pretty spot on that we're not going to see any close games.
Now, isn't Compton another one of those arenas like Michigan State where the benches are on opposite sides?
Yeah.
Yep, opposite sides. It's a weird rink.
Eric,
don't take too many penalties.
What does that do to teams? I really have no idea. Does that affect teams at all?
It gives them a slight advantage because they can pop out of their box, take one step, and go into their bench, whereas the away team has to skate across the ice. That's the whole idea. I remember I was on a visit to Nebraska Omaha, and this would have been 2014, maybe? No, 2015. But they were building their new rink at the time, and I remember Dean Blaze was telling me that, like he was telling me that the two things that they were building in that I think he thought was super clever was, one, they were going to make the away team have a super long walk from the away locker room onto the ice, and then they were going to make the benches on opposite sides just to give that slight advantage to them as the home team being able to just pop in, whereas the away team has to skate all the way across. So I don't know. I'm sure they pick up a goal every once in a while from them having to come across, but
it does make a shorter change because the benches are typically more centered, Vigs. So that second period, defensive change is not as far.
Yeah, that's true. I do think that penalty box issue, does show up every once in a while. So it's something different and something to be aware of. The Gophers have such a young team. I don't think it'll be a problem. They've played a lot of hockey games at this point in their careers. They'll probably adjust just fine, but it is something unique. I remember Old Mariucci had it that way.
They did.
Penalty box right next to the Gopher bench and the visiting team on the other side. That's probably why Dean Blaze thought it was such a cool thing to have.
Yeah.
We shall see. Games are on Peacock this weekend, Vigs. Peacock has done a really good job. Or at least Notre Dame has done a really good job at the quality of the stream. A lot of people will get Peacock free with like Xfinity and a couple of the cable providers. Otherwise, it's $4.99 for a month of Peacock. Get it for a month. That you get great Gopher hockey this weekend, and then you can stream all their other stuff for a month. So I think it's a bargain either way. I hear people complaining about it, Vigs. I just don't know how you can complain about it. I think it's a really good service for what you're getting for $5.
We're just kind of headed that way with sports.
Yeah.
You look at all the money that's going in to the athletics these days and all the streaming services trying to get in. You're just going to have to adjust. It's not like the old days where you could just get one simple cable package or put up your bunny ears and be fine. It's going to be different from week to week, and at least the quality is going to be really nice.
All right, Eric, thanks for joining us again. Will you hang around a bit for overtime?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Right, Vigs, what you got going on?
I'm excited to see the beer.
Besides the beer.
Yeah, that's about it right now. I'm looking forward to the weekend here. I think recruiting is going to be a little quiet now for the Gophers going forward.
Okay.
Now that they got Jackson Nevers, I think they've still got to decide what's going to happen at the end of the year, and they're saving scholarships. But they couldn't wait on Jackson Nevers. He's a must take for them.
Okay. Well, nothing wrong with that. Well, thanks for joining us, Eric. We love having you on, and nice. He's going to be with us here for a bit of overtime. Oh, it's going to be a fun weekend. I like these weekends at Notre Dame. So that's going to wrap it up for this GPL podcast. Obviously, thank Eric again for joining us. We'll be back next week, recap this series with Notre Dame, and preview the series with Michigan. We'll have Connor Eargood from the Michigan Daily on with us to help preview that weekend. It'll be interesting to have him on. So for those of you watching live, stay tuned for some overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next time on the GPL podcast. All right, there it is. I'm going to go solo on you here, Vigs. What you got there tonight, Vigs?
I've got the Surly double-bladed Axeman. Double IPA. Axeman's like their Citra hop. It's delicious. This is a 10.8% beer. Danker, hoppier, louder.
That's a loaf of bread.
Yes, it is. This is it. This is fortified with lots of good stuff, I bet.
Well, at least I didn't choke on the water this week, Viggs.
Improving. You're doing well for the second half.
I had to use that clip for the beginning, though. I was just too good to not use. I mean, it won't sound great on the audio. People will be like, "What is that? Can you mute your microphone?"
Jeez. Unbelievable.
It happens. I couldn't get to the mute button quick enough, so I was just choking on air. That's how it is. That's how it is. So, are there other high school players we should be looking at? Somebody was telling me about another former Gopher player or former Gopher dad that has a kid that's really good.
Well, Patolny's got a kid at Shattuck who's really, really good. I
didn't know.
think he's quite recruitable, committable yet, but he's at the Shattuck on their.
Was it Vanek too?
Well, Vanek's kid's a Bantam, I think. Well, he might be playing high school, but he was a.
Someone was
Bantam.
telling me last weekend that he's playing high school and he's scoring.
Yeah, and then Spihar's kids are playing for the Sioux Falls Power, so it's like a AAA team that's kind of new.
Spihar must have waited because Spihar is quite a bit older than the rest of them.
Well, I get the sense that he had to settle down a little bit. You know, he had to be a Spihar for a while.
Had to be a Spihar.
You know, when you're floating at the red line, you know that might be a lifestyle too. So, get a few years and get back to basics.
People really ripped on him here, but he had a successful career, Viggs. He did.
Yeah, I don't think he was quite scoring hat tricks like he was in the state tournament, but he was a productive.
I don't know what you're talking
power
about.
player.
I don't know what you're talking about. Hat tricks in the state tournament. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm still bitter about it. Yes.
With all the hype he had coming in, he was not that kind of player, and he just wasn't that kind of build.
Hey, that's how Patrick White got on the Gophers too.
Yeah. So
What
there's a lot of kids coming up these days. So
does Eric even know who Spihar is?
No.
Yeah, there you go, folks.
You don't?
I should be embarrassed to say no or not.
No, I wouldn't be embarrassed at all.
Well, someone on the team didn't know that Paul Martin played in the NHL.
I
so.
did see that. That was bad. I'm not that bad. I might not know Gopher hockey history as well as you do. I've gained a lot here in the last couple of years.
But you know what? You're part of it now, so it's all good for us.
So give me the spark notes.
Dave Spihar. He's a kid from the 90s. Famous for scoring 3 hat tricks in 3 games in the state tournament.
Not bad.
His first game, he scored a hat trick against a Jefferson team that was going for their 4th state title. He scored another hat trick in the next game. Scored another hat trick in the state championship. Kind of became a legend that weekend. Huh? I mean, he really did.
Yeah, and he was like a little kind of not in the best of shape kind of guy, but he's like 5'8", maybe a little overweight, and just could score and just had that goal scorer's touch, floated a lot, good on the power play, just enough speed to separate, but not really to control a game.
Okay.
He's like a Phil Kessel light.
Phil Kessel light.
Or a Phil Kessel heavy, maybe, I guess.
But he was on some good teams, Viggs. We had some good teams in those 90s.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And now he's got a parody Twitter account that hypes up a different team.
I was
going to
say, I thought I wasn't
You
sure.
have.
I've seen that pop up a couple times. I'm like, what is this? Like, for some reason, it comes up on my feed, and I'm like, this isn't real, right? It's funny that you say that. I wasn't sure that there was a.
So 90, 96, 97 through 99, 2000 is when he played for the Gophers.
Gotcha.
And then he was also in that big Duluth East, Apple Valley, multiple 4 or 5 overtime game, wasn't he, Viggs?
Yep. That was a huge one back then. I was there.
You were?
I was there. I was a high school student at the time, so I got team tickets. And so I was sitting up with my buddies from Roseville and Como Park, and we were
Did your
shade at
teammates
St. Thomas Academy?
Did your Gopher teammates ever drag you down to a state tournament, Eric?
Yeah, I've been to a couple. I actually went to the first time I went was in 8th grade when I was at Shattuck.
Really?
I know, but she didn't think I'd gone in 8th grade. So I went in 8th grade when I was at Shattuck. I went to, one of the early rounds, whatever. And then I also went to the championship game, which was the game that Kyle Rowell scored the game winner.
Oh my gosh.
So that was my first state hockey experience. It was pretty cool coming from Alaska high school hockey, which nothing to scoff at, but it's not. They're not playing at the X. Put it that way.
That was quite the game. Sadly, I have not been to a state high school game since 1989.
Really? Are you boycotting?
I was in high school. My team was playing. I was there.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Bloomington Jefferson.
Oh, you're a Jefferson guy.
And which used to have hockey teams, good teams.
I went to the Bloomington Ice Garden for the first time ever last spring. I guess it would be kind of spring to watch Edina Benilde in the section championship game. And that's just not where that game should be.
No,
It's historically there though.
It's there, but it's usually it used to be just quarterfinals.
No, they used to have section semis there.
Oh, yeah, maybe
And
the
then,
semis.
there'd be like 4 games, and you'd have to get 2 different tickets. And so you'd kind of have to have someone run out and get tickets for the next session. And that parking lot was always just packed. And
the parking lot's the worst.
It's the worst. And if you got there too late, you get a long walk.
You see, now that was different for me, Eric, is that one of the streets that goes straight across from the parking lot is Abbott.
Yeah.
I lived at the other end of Abbott, so I could walk to the games.
Yeah, it was a mess when I went there. But like, I swear, did they not used to play at Mariucci
For the final?
Well,
but they used to do
yeah,
semis.
I was at the final.
yeah.
Oh, they did.
They used to do
final
finals
there?
at Met Center way back in the day. The old Stars building.
Or even just like play them at Ritter. Like if you don't want to play them at Mariucci, like because it's too sparse, which I get that argument. I still think it's cool, but I get that argument. Then pack Ritter. Be awesome.
The big issue with playing at Mariucci is the high school coaches didn't like playing a section championship on the Olympic ice.
Yeah.
Because it would change so much. I remember watching an Apple Valley team where their 2 defensemen basically played the entire game. And I'm trying to remember who they are. One of them was like a first-round pick by Montreal, and the other went out and played at Vermont. He was like 6'7". And someone in the chat probably is going to help me out. But they played in a section final at Mariucci, and those 2 were on the ice basically the entire game.
Yeah, that's tough, and that's kind of how high school works, right? You ride your horses, especially on the back.
Dave Fisher.
Yep, David Fisher, and then there's another guy who is like 6'7", who's a partner for him, and they were just on the ice all the time because they could just control the game because they were so talented that anytime there was a puck, they could just take it into the deep corners because it was really deep back then. Go behind the net, forwards would change, and they'd slowly go up the ice, and control the game.
But the thing is, Viggs, is that it wasn't the ice size back then. It was the arena size. Because some of those section finals used to be played at Met Center back in the 80s, where they would have like a Section 5 and a Section 6 championships, So you'd have like Jefferson play Kennedy, and you'd have Minnetonka play Edina. And there was 10, 12,000 people there to see those games. So they went to Mariucci because they needed a big rink. And some of those section finals in the mid-90s, Mariucci was fuller than it's ever been for a Gopher game.
Yeah, I mean, the big section final places were Coliseum on the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
Aldrich, which was always a disaster trying to watch Hill Murray and White Bear play because you had to try to get a ticket for that. That was a hard one. And then Big and Mariucci, yeah.
But then they've used St. Cloud. They used the deck.
Well, if you know anybody from Elk River, you've heard about them having to go play at the deck in section finals, and that's why they hardly ever get to the state tournament. They got that long bus ride to go up and play, Duluth East or Grand Rapids or whoever.
But if you're saying a section final at Big,
It used to happen.
Especially those two, right?
See, section finals. Well, when I was growing up, no, section finals were at Met Center, and then they went to Mariucci. Never would they have a section final. In fact, section semifinals would be at the Met Center Vigs.
Yeah,
and it was only the quarterfinals where you'd be at Big or at Braemar and whatnot, not finals. So it's a little different than it used to be. I mean, they're not going to the big arenas anymore, probably because costs too. But huge locker rooms. I'm just reading over the comments here.
I got a question for you guys. Was it Jess Myers that you guys were saying last? I think the last time I was on here, you guys were saying that him and Bob kind of had a rivalry of some sort. Maybe not a rivalry, but like he would ask a question that Bob felt was kind of dumb, and he'd be a little standoffish. Was that him last time, or was that you, Viggs?
Oh, no. Viggs, he looks to Viggs when he wants a normal question. I swear, really? He just looks at you. He kind of goes like this. Can you ask a smart question? He doesn't say it, Viggs, but he kind of looks at you like
there's
that.
A little bit of there's a look.
Yeah, he's got and it's not because he's such a nice guy and just a genuinely good guy, but he has a good you're a fucking idiot look without saying you're a fucking idiot. And you understand exactly what he's saying. You're like, yep, all right.
Mm-hmm. I just think a lot of times, as Viggs, you said, sometimes Jess just can't read the room, and he asks a question that just it's not appropriate. It's not the time to be the lighthearted he's kind of going after.
He has kind of got that journalist to-do list in the post game sometimes where after a loss, not the time to ask funny, witty questions. You just have to recognize that that's a loss, and you just kind of have to tread lightly and go through the motions and get some quotes and whatnot and find out what happened. But Jess will still be like, oh wait, for my notebook I need a quote on this. And he'll ask a question and not read the room. And it's just like, okay, that was tough. What can we ask next? So Bob doesn't leave the room immediately, so
that's funny.
It's funny.
Like when he asked if Walker was being disciplined.
Right.
When he was out of the game.
Walker clearly had gotten a hit to the head, and Bob wasn't going to say he got a concussion or was being held out for a head injury or anything like that. So Jess goes, well, is he suspended? Is it disciplinary? And Bob goes, are you crazy? He looks at me. I was I didn't ask the question.
This guy type of
question. I know he got hit to the head.
Someone's got a video of these.
We got some of them. We still have to put together a best of Jess Myers clips. When he always asks about the backup goalie, and Bob's like, are you trying to create a goalie controversy again, Jess? I'm going to name this starter, and he's going to play until I say someone else is going to play.
That's funny.
He did do that a lot. He does love to ask about the goalies.
Or the opposing coach, or the rink size, or the road trip.
Okay, as a player, Eric, how hard is it to not say what you really want to say? And not give the generic answers.
It's really not that hard. It's actually super easy to say to say something or to say nothing while saying something. I mean, it's programmed. There's
because there's only a few players that do.
There's 20 different lines in my head that I can come up with right now that I could they're just boilerplate. I don't know where it must come from just years of seeing other, NHL guys interviews that have that, but it's you could ask any hockey player and they'd have the same 20 if they really want to.
What do you guys need to do in the next period? Get pucks deep.
Yeah.
Shorter passes, get on the forecheck, protect the house.
Exactly.
Because Justin Clue said we played like shit twice.
Yeah.
In his career.
It's funny that you say that because that's ringing my memory that I want to say because we had a tough start my freshman year, and I think Klus was. I mean, he was blatant in the locker room, and I think he was blatant in the media. We couldn't talk to the media at that point, and I didn't really read it, so I didn't know. But I do remember maybe Don or Genner saying at some point, like, "Listen, guys, it's not going great. We know that, but we don't need to go in the media and say that like we're playing like shit. Like that's But
Well, I mean, he did that with the athletic director there too. Coyle was there. I mean, I've heard. I mean,
yeah,
and the thing is, he wasn't trying to be mean. He's just
he wasn't trying to get a soundbite either.
No, it was just him being honest, and you could tell it was him being honest.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to do a soundbite.
Well, I had a high school football coach who never ever swore, and he had fines, and you'd have to run hills or do killers if you swore, or you'd have to bring donuts for the team or something on Saturday morning if you did something on the game that he didn't like. And he kind of held to that. But like once every like career of a player, he would swear about something, and that got everyone's attention. And everyone goes, he's pissed. He means it. Like he knows. And the players know then, because if you spout off all the time, it doesn't have any impact. But if you are one of those people that kind of holds back and then you say something, everybody goes, okay, my antenna's up. I'm in. And so maybe Klus was trying to do that at that one point. That was an interesting part of the program where you had that City Pages article that came out that basically ripped the entire program down.
Yeah.
And had a lot of alums involved. So
God, who was the goalie? Was it a goal? No, who was it who said that?
He had a lot of off the record people that he just quoted.
Who wrote
City
that?
Pages. Corey or no?
Oh yes, Zarowski. He was a
Corey
former
Zarowski.
goalie.
Yeah,
he was a former goalie for my Jefferson team too. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, he was a player, so he played, turned into a writer, and then a lot of off the record stuff, like you said, Viggs.
Yeah, and then he blindsided like the coaching staff with it too. It was like a interview request for something different, and then he started like just throwing all this at the wall against the coaches to see how they react. And that was pretty big at that time. I remember Klus was like, talk to me after we win the Frozen Four. That was his mindset. He's like, we're just going to play through it.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was, again, I didn't fully understand what was going on because I was just a freshman in my own little world, and at that time didn't know much of Gopher hockey history or all the alumni's feelings about things.
The thing is, a lot of alumni weren't showing up then when you were a freshman.
Yeah, that's what I heard and learned. But I didn't know any of that or really pay attention to it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's weird.
One thing I was told this weekend is that the Don is a completely different person now that he's not coaching. I'm like, you know what? You take that stress off some people, their true personality comes out. And I've heard people who never liked the guy says he is pleasant to be around. He's a completely different person. And I believe it because, you know what? That job is stressful.
Yeah.
It just is. And he just has the kind of personality who just kind of shuts down and keeps everything real close to him. So it's kind of nice to people are saying we're seeing the true Don now, Viggs.
Well, I think at the end of his career, when he had kind of decided that he was done, he kind of warmed up to me a little bit.
Yeah,
and
he
would
did
give me a little bit more access and talk things through with me and kind of figured me out a little bit and what I was up to. And, I think a big part of that was the weight was off his shoulders. He's like, I'm almost done. I can be a little more open with things. But at the same point, like it was a frustrating finish for him. Just like trying to, I don't think it was quite one of those things where it's a one team, 20 Ubers, but it felt like it was close to that. Even the coaching staff is like 3 coaches, 3 Ubers, sometimes. I don't think anyone was really happy at the end of that. But
we know, obviously Gensel wasn't.
Yeah.
It was time to clean house, Vigs. It just was. I mean, but the thing is, the same thing happened to the Wooger. I mean, you look at the Wooger had 2 what they thought were bad years, and he was out. And those weren't and by the standards of today, those weren't really bad years.
At that point, I remember it a little differently. I remember Wooger kind of falling behind the times in recruiting, kind of like how Lucia's staff was falling behind the times. Like they were committing to guys too early that weren't panning out. And Wooger was very stuck to having guys come straight from high school to college and not having that junior experience. And he had really young teams. And it wasn't at the time where hockey was where it is now, where you have a lot of high-end talent coming out of the development program. And you have a lot of high-end seniors who go play that year of USHL and then come to college a little bit ready. You had guys like Fisher who dominated high school hockey and then jumped right to the Gophers. And it's like, oh, you can't play that way. You can't play 35 minutes a night and sit back with the puck and just use your size and skill to evade any forecheck. You're going to be under pressure. You got to play different. So it's just changing times. I think what's very impressive right now is how well Bob's recruiting and how well this team is performing. And I wanted to get Eric to talk about Justin Close a little bit and what he's picked up on from him, because I know he gets a lot of flack as just being an average goalie. And he played pretty well against St. Cloud. Like there were no real second chances. He's so calm out there. He doesn't lose his net on the scrambles. I've been noticing this lately. Like when there's a puck loose in the crease, there are certain goalies, they just lose their net. And that never seems to happen to Close.
Yeah. I don't know who's calling him average. I mean, I think he's anything but average, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know about you guys, but everything I've seen, I mean, I guess it's been almost a full calendar year exactly now.
Yeah, it has been. Yep.
He's taken over. And to me, he's been anything but average. And he's been just incredibly consistent as well. Like how many times, I don't know off the top of my head, but how many times have we seen this guy get pulled or give up 4 or 5? Like off the top of my head, not many. You can count on one hand for sure. And he's just rock solid every night and he never panics. His movements are incredibly good. He's calm as can be in there and he makes every single save that you need him to save. And then he makes a whole bunch of saves that he's not supposed to make. So I don't think, if people think that he might be a reason that they're going to be held back this year, I couldn't disagree more. And I think he's actually potentially going to be a reason that they go places that everyone wants him to. So I think they're in great hands with him. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys think he's average? I mean, his numbers are. I mean, he's got.
I will say it helps to have who he's got in front of him.
Totally.
Because when Bob came in, Vigs, I think you've even mentioned this. He was not happy with what the defensive core skill levels were at, and who was back there, who was obviously right in front of you, Eric. He's like, some of these guys, we need better defensemen. So I think that helps. But I'm kind of with you guys. He is very calm. And you know what? How often does he give up a bad goal, Vigs?
I was just looking back, and I remember the Ohio State game where he gave up 5, and the Arizona State game where he gave up 6. And so those games have popped up where he's struggled. And I think the two things that limit him as a goalie is the fact that he has to be pretty aggressive with his depth. And when the puck moves laterally, he has to take a different angle to cover the net to get across. And so when the team in front of him can just keep the puck on one side of the ice, he is very, very good. But if the puck moves laterally across the slot to the other side, I think he has a hard time getting in a position to be big enough and cover the net. So I think that is kind of one of those things that's a challenge for him because he's 5'10" and maybe 5'9". So as a goalie like that size, like you just can't get across and cover up the net. And I don't know, he's pretty athletic, but you just don't see those big pushes across where he's able to make big saves on those. I think in the North Dakota game, he only gave up 2, but they were both on those kind of side-to-side pushes for shots on the other circle that are just brutal for a goalie to make. But, you see some of the goalies like at Denver, what's his name? The big guy, the big Swede for Denver. But like he gets across.
Sit away, Wallenheimo.
Yeah, they seem to get those foreigners over there. But like he's a big goalie, he pushes across, and he's just so big that the puck seems to hit him. Portillo is kind of the same way. Those guys can have big holes in their arms when they move like that, but it's different.
Corona?
Yeah, Corona.
Corona?
That's the guy I'm thinking of. So
I don't know. Portillo moves too much. Like he doesn't use his size well enough. If he had the approach that combine Close and Portillo, you got a pretty damn good goalie there. But I mean, I was just looking up his stats quick. He's got a 9, basically in a full season, he's got a 9.22 and he's 27-11. So I mean, yeah, he's got a good team in front of him, but like still got to make the saves, and it's not always easy when you're facing 20 shots.
Yeah, Portillo is swimming right now. He's got a lot of holes in his movement.
Yeah.
Like I have not been impressed with him.
He looked bad when they played him. Whenever they played him,
he's been caught in going down on anything across the crease, and they're just picking that near corner that he just goes into the butterfly or goes in that reverse VH thing, just gives it away. So I don't know. I think if the team plays well in front of him and keeps the pucks to one side of the ice and doesn't let it get across, the Gophers are going to be in great shape. And early in the year, the penalty kill was just like a sieve. Like pucks were going across the crease or across the slot all the time, and it just made me worried. The last couple games, they've shut it down, and they're playing a lot better. I've noticed Johnson especially is doing a good job cutting off those passes and sticks in lanes. And you hear Miller talking about that, penalty kill, get your sticks down, keep them in lanes, don't let your stick get off the ice when you're penalty killing, because you can block passes that way. So
some of that also comes back to just the style of play, Viggs. Like you said, one thing they did when they're at Michigan is they were defense first. When they went to Arizona,
that was a bad weekend.
I mean, they didn't. Bad. I mean, and when the defense doesn't play good, he lets in a bunch of goals. Even the Ohio State game they won, they gave up like 2 shorthanded breakaway goals. That's not on a goalie.
He played well the next night against Ohio State. So that first night was just kind of rough. And then when Bardo came in, he wasn't much better. And that was just a bad game for Minnesota. And
so
when you
what
have
do
a
they do
young team,
about goalie next year?
Yeah, Bob doesn't hasn't to this point made many exceptions to the 5th year, but I mean,
well, he did it for LaFontaine.
Yeah,
does he do it again?
If there's any position that you make an exception for, it's goalie. I don't know what their plans are with Bartasevich. I haven't seen him play much, so I don't really know kind of what he has. But unless you think Bartasevich is the next coming, I would say keep him, right? Or unless you got a freshman who you think is going to be an absolute stud that you're going to lose to Michigan or Denver or Wisconsin or BC.
They don't have anyone like that in the pipeline.
Yeah, so why not?
Transfer portal, maybe? That's what Brever's saying.
You don't need a tank for draft picks. Keep the guy.
And I mean, it would be hard for Justin Close, I think, to play at the pro level, just based on what I know about NHL scouting and projections. Like a lot of teams won't let you even sign or draft goalies under 6 feet tall.
Well, it's like 6'3" now. It's like a prereq.
Yeah, it is a prereq. It's very rare for anyone to even get a shot that's under that height. So
now this is a word. Have you talked about my Seawolves yet? Love my Seawolves.
Brent's been in the chat all night. He likes the hair. He likes the flow. There's a couple other comments in there.
That's good
He's chirping
stuff.
you.
I guess I haven't paid that close attention, but
Who
hello,
is
Brent.
this guy? Do you want to put on?
I love my
last?
Seawolves too, Brent.
We're just hoping the Alaska schools survive.
Yeah, Fairbanks is on a good little run.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, they're not playing in Sullivan anymore, Viggs. Aren't they playing in a little tiny, like basically high school arena now?
Yes.
I haven't followed too closely, but
yes, I can answer that for you. Yeah, they play in a, like you said, small, basically high school arena. I mean, it's actually probably not as good as a lot of high school arenas here. The big issue is, and the drama within Alaska hockey is that, so about 6-7 years ago, the school built a multi-purpose facility for basketball and volleyball, I think, which are both D2, and they could have / should have made it for hockey as well, but for whatever reason they didn't. Their athletic director at the time was like from the South, came from a school in the South, and had no, hockey background, and I guess didn't see the value. And so they made that rink or that arena that didn't suit hockey and pissed a lot of people off. And then they got kicked out of the Sullivan Arena. And so now they have no place to play. So I think they're trying to raise funding for a rink for them. And they have an NA team up there now too. So that would be huge. But yeah, they really dropped the ball on that one. It's tough.
It is tough.
Yeah, at least they're back though. The community had to raise like $3 million to get them back, which I think, I want to say their burn rate is $1 million per season. So that'll last them 3 seasons.
They were streaming games 2006, 2007, Viggs, somewhere in there, or 8, 10. I mean, they were streaming games out
tremendous
of Sullivan Arena.
advertising coming out of
Alaska, but they were doing that. They were doing it long before anyone else was doing it, Viggs.
Yep. No, it was great. It was great to see. It may have been behind a little bit when they played the Gophers, but they were doing it.
Those 6-wheel vehicles they were always advertising, and
the video stores. It was great.
It was fun because, like I said,
nothing beats an Alaska commercial. Honestly, they're hilarious.
The team was up there one time for the Iditarod beginning of the Iditarod. Their hotel was on the street.
Yeah,
Mark Barr was telling me he was awakened early that morning to just dogs barking and barking. He's like, he opened up his window and literally right there on the street was the beginning of the Iditarod.
You're getting the full experience. It's great.
I've got to get to Alaska sometime.
Getting the Minnesota boys cultured.
I need to get up there.
I made it up there one time for a trip for a college buddy who lived up there, and I went to a bar and I saw Troy Riddle. And he was playing pro hockey up there. And
really?
Post-game celly. And like we just kind of tangentially knew each other because I was in college when he was in college and I had been around a little bit. But it was pretty funny. And I had a great time up there. I went to the Double Muskie up by the ski hill there. And
of course.
Kenai Peninsula. I went to Homer, Alaska, saw all the eagles. I had the peppercorn crusted steak up there at the Double Muskie and did it all. Went to the Moose Tooth.
Stop it, Viggs.
Moose's Tooth, that's number 1, Viggs.
Yeah, Moose's Tooth was good. Good beer, good pizza.
Mm-hmm. Great beer.
Not really.
One of my college buddies, he spoke Russian in college. He took Russian classes and was fluent. And his background was like a builder. And so he moved back home and there's all these Russian immigrants there. And because he could speak fluent Russian, they trusted him. So they gave him like every job. So he just made like a fortune building out all these Russian businesses and homes up there and lives a great life.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
How often do you get back home?
I go home for Christmas every year for a couple of weeks, and I try to get home in summer. So combined, probably 3 or 4 weeks. It's tough now that I work, but But yeah, I try to get back there as much as possible. It's just hard. It's not exactly easy getting back there. 6-hour flight.
Yeah.
Fly from here to England in 6 hours.
Yeah.
That flight is crazy. I fell asleep on the flight and woke up and I saw these mountains. I'm like, where am I going?
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
It was that crazy. People.
I
living in
remember
the bush.
Jeff Oftos was on the plane with the players when he went up there. And he covered a game for us up there. He doesn't write for us very much anymore, but Jeff does once in a while, fills in. He got a family and all that stuff, so he's pretty busy. But he was able to go up there with a buddy who worked for the airline, so he got like a free ticket to go up, and it just happened to be on with the players. I got him a credential. He was on a table in the concourse as they didn't have anything special. And literally his table was right next to Wally and Glenn calling the games. And he said it was just a blast. Fun, half empty arena. But he said he had a blast going up there.
Yeah, it's a fun town. What's the bar with like 7 bars up there? It's like the bar with 7 bars.
Okay. You got to remember, I have not spent a lot of my life in Alaska.
It's when he was young, Viggs. He couldn't drink then.
Yeah, a good recruiting tip is like, where can I get a good drink around here? If the kid has lots of answers.
Even less of my adult life.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I
can't
don't know
remember
what you're talking about, honestly.
Okay. Wow.
No help.
Isn't that where the Don lives most of the time now, Viggs?
Yeah, he's got a place in Kenai, which is 2.5 hours south of Anchorage. I haven't seen it. I'm imagining it's pretty sweet, but that's like top-notch fishing there.
Yeah, he gets a nice retirement.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, his wife's from Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the motherland.
He told an off-color joke when he said why he had to move away from there. He said, we had 4 kids in Alaska. He's like, it was time to move.
Sounds about right.
Because they were,
not a lot to do during the
not a lot to do in the winter.
You coach hockey and then have some Chianti.
You got Sorensen doing well for the Nooks. He had a pretty good weekend against Denver, didn't he?
He's leading the team in scoring. I know that. So I was like, so.
Oops.
Good for him.
Let me see. What's he ripping on me now for? Jesus, Viggs. What did I do? Lots of darkness. Yeah, well, of course, it's winter. Well, yeah, he can't. Actually, he could talk about Eisman. No, Eisman hasn't signed yet, so he cannot talk until he signs.
He's too young. He's got another year with a development program before he gets there. I mean, every time I've seen him on hockey TV, like he just scores goals. Like he just fills up the net on the rush, in zone, got a good release. I don't know. It's hard.
Goalie's nightmare.
It's hard to know how those players are going to project. Like I'm not saying he's Connor Bedard, but like Connor Bedard just scores goals. Like he just has the puck in the offensive zone and he sees something and he releases the puck and he scores. Like I'm not saying Yzerman has the kind of complete game that Bedard has, but it's more like that Snuggerud. Like anytime he has the puck, the goalie's got to get his antenna up and see like, okay, I got to get in position because this guy's going to shoot it.
How did they steal him from Boston though? I mean,
hockey players like to win.
I know, but
like they've got recruits lined up the next 2 years now that are just solid. Like,
yeah, but they're also going to lose super solid guys too.
Yeah. And that's the model that Bob has sold his soul to right now is he needs guys like Pinomini and Strobel and Kurth and Middlestat to come in. And then he needs these guys like Cooley and Snuggerud to come in because you're going to have to balance it. I feel like this class might have gotten a little heavy with 1 or 2 and dones, but it might be worth it this year. You know, next year could be interesting with how many people I have to replace, but Who knows? These guys
That's a lot
could
of
surprise.
a lot of defense they got to replace, Viggs.
Yeah,
Because Faber will be playing for the Wild
right
maybe
away.
this
In
spring,
April.
and the rest of them are going to be gone.
I was
Nice.
surprised to see that St. Cloud only had 2 drafted guys. I feel like that's not realistic at Minnesota or even St. Cloud really too, honestly. But that's right out of Duluth's playbook too. I mean, they've had some super high-end skill and super talented guys like, the Anderson brothers and Iafallo and stuff like that. But for the most part too, they had guys who were really good for them, but weren't highly touted.
That's the Scott Sandelin playbook, and
Yeah,
Brett
right.
Larson is following it to a T. Like, they play the same style too. Like, I think character almost means more to him than talent.
Right.
He wants guys to buy in. I think the only line that I saw for St. Cloud that wasn't super, super disciplined about chasing puck outside the dots was the Cruikshank line. Like, that line with Micah Miller, like, they would get a little chasey, like trying to find plays and create offense. But every other line, 4 guys inside the dots, 1 could go outside.
There's a lot of talk this week, Viggs, that St. Cloud might not be as good on an NHL rank, and that Minnesota would match up better on an NHL size rank. Is there anything to that?
Well, I think so. I think it's easier to make plays on the NHL rink, and it's easier to compress the ice on Olympic side and keep everybody outside the dots because there's so much extra space out there. I'll be looking forward to next year when the rink shrinks at Mariucci, just to see how it changes it over the year.
I'm looking. Oh, Brent's going to bed. That's nice, Brent. Yeah, Cooley, Snuggerud should not leave, but Cooley and Snuggerud probably 50%. Well, Cooley's gone. I'm guessing he's probably not even going to school. Snuggerud.
What are you guys hearing on that, or on both of those? I mean,
Well, I don't hear much,
assumed the same, that Cooley's gone. But I'd be curious to hear if you guys knew anything on Snuggerud and
just that he's been patient the whole way through, and he knows, like, to play professional, he's got to add more. I know scouts after the World Juniors, like, they just wish he was a little sturdier. And he's a guy who hasn't necessarily put a lot of time into strength and conditioning. He put a lot of time into skating, and it's better straight line, but it's not as dynamic laterally. And so strength and conditioning will help with that. It'll make him more explosive. And I think he's been sold on that by Cal and Bob and Ben a little bit. So we'll see. But I think Cooley is definitely a kid who wants to move on as fast as possible and play through it. Like, he's trying to prove himself right now in college that he's tough and competitive and gritty as well as talented. Because I think he's trying to make a name for himself, that he's ready. And I just get that sense that that's what's going to happen.
You think that's a lock?
That he'll leave? I mean, I would put it at 80%.
80%?
He's a one and done.
Lower than I thought it might be.
Yeah. So I think he likes playing with the guys he's playing with.
Yeah.
And that's something that is hard to put a value on. And let's be honest, when you're playing at Minnesota and you're chartering everywhere, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. It's a big jump to go to the AHL where that's not going to happen. And that's the one thing that college guys have, is that if they turn pro at that age, that 19-year-old, they could play in the AHL.
Yeah.
We see that with Shane Wright and, what he's going through because he can't play in the AHL. College players can. But does Logan understand that when he signs, that Arizona has that right to put him there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe he understands that, but is Arizona telling him that there's a possibility of that? Probably not.
No.
I would imagine they're telling him he's going to come up, he's going to finish the season, and he's going to make their team out of training camp next year.
Right. But if he struggles, they're going to send him to the NHL. That's just what's happening to Marco Rossi right now. It's like he came up and he thought he was going to be the NHL all year. he didn't perform the way they wanted, it's big boy sports. They're just going to put you in the minors.
Right.
How much is it playing at Arizona State going to make a difference to him? Because, or even that franchise, it's just a complete cluster down there right now, Viggs.
It's a goal scorers team. You get to play offense there. They don't have a ton
in front of 5,000 people max.
So if he's in the NHL, he's in the NHL, and he's 3 years away from a second contract. It's a pretty good deal, but he's got to stay there.
Yeah,
you look at like Lafreniere for the Rangers. He went right to the NHL, and he is at the point where they're like, do we want to sign this guy to an RFA deal, or do we want to dump him to a team that might not be as invested and send him to the AHL, which maybe he needs to go there? I don't know. It's hard to be that talented because you don't see the world the way everybody else does. You always think you're going to make it. Maybe that's why he is where he is. So
stay in school, kid. Do your schooling.
But he's going to want to do it too.
Yeah.
If he stays and thinks he should be in the pros, that's a bad situation too. Like, I don't know. I don't want to bring up bad blood, but there have been people that feel like they should move on from the U because they're getting put in the wrong spots and they get to pro hockey and it's not any better. You got to fix the holes in your game, but it's hard to see the holes when you don't want to see them. Is that cryptic enough for everybody or no? I don't want to get Eric in trouble.
Oh, you get in trouble.
I hear you loud and clear.
But I don't know. I still think Snuggerud will stick. I think Nyes will be gone. Faber will be gone. Johnson will be gone.
Well, Johnson's a senior.
Yeah. I mean,
Lacombe will be gone.
Johnson's been playing some games with Buffalo, whether or not he actually wants to sign with them. Because he can be a free agent.
Yeah. That's one thing. He does have that option, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because he'll have played his 4 years, and he's going to be like, hey, he'll have more power than the rest of them.
Yep. He's an interesting kid. Like, he's very into his faith and sticking around family and going through this process. And he works on his game a ton. Like, he's out on the ice early, late, working on things. Because I think his upbringing was a little different than everybody else.
But would his personality work better in a smaller market like Buffalo? I mean, you see him when he's talking in interviews. He's got his head down. He doesn't want to be in that type of, he's just a different kid. He seems like he might do better in a smaller market.
Yeah, it's tough.
Where the limelight's not on him all the time.
Buffalo's got a lot of defensemen though, with Dahlin and Power, and they've got a couple other guys too. It's a crowded blue line there. It'd be tough for Ryan Johnson to get sent down to the Rochester Americans and have to prove himself there. That's not going to be as much fun as maybe flying charters and working on your game. I don't know. I don't think it'd be a COVID fifth year, but we'll see.
Why would you want to be in Toronto?
I think Nyes likes the spotlight. I think he'd thrive there. He really likes being a big time hockey player. So I don't think Toronto will phase him one bit.
No. I mean, obviously a place like that, there's going to be a lot of spotlight, but like you said, he likes it.
Nyes likes it. Like, Johnson wouldn't like the spotlight, but Nyes will love it. So that's just the read I get.
So really, it's going to kind of be like people are kind of iffy on Snuggerud.
Yeah, Snuggerud. Kester. I think Kester shows a lot of promise as a power play guy, and he makes a lot of heady plays out there.
He's going to have a C next year.
I worry about his durability a little bit. He's a little bit smaller guy.
Yeah, I know, but he's going to be a leader next year.
But yeah, he's a very well-spoken guy, and I think he's great. So he can be a leader next year. And that's the thing. We're seeing that with Faber and Lacombe. Look at the benefit of those guys staying as long as they have. Like, they just grow so much as players.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would ask Eric about is like goalie development. Like, as we look at recruiting goalies and how it works, I mean, what's the roadmap for these guys and identifying kids who can play in college and how they pan out? Like, I was looking at goalies who've won NCAA championships, and it's just the gamut of paths. You know, you've got guys who are not really recruited until they're 19. You've got guys who signed when they were 16 and went to the development team. You've got guys who've transferred. What is so challenging about all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so challenging because, like, with drafting goalies, I mean, there's less dispersion, but it's such a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, how many times is there a goalie that's recruited, or, you know, you look at Justin Close. I mean, that's example A. Like, how really we thought this guy who was the third goalie 2-3 years ago is going to do this now, and then, you know, Jared Mose at Wisconsin. Like, granted, two totally different worlds as far as teams in front of them, but it's just crazy. I totally agree with you, and I would imagine a lot of those national championship goalies are guys that didn't exactly go on to have super successful pro careers either.
Yeah, that was the thing. It's like only one of them really
Like Corey
went on to
Schneider,
play.
right? Like,
Yeah.
Corey Schneider's the first one that comes to mind.
Elliott did okay.
Yeah, Elliott's.
I mean, Elliott did okay. I mean,
no, Elliott did more than okay. Elliott.
Yeah, but I mean, and he's been around a long time too. He's been there for a while. So
yeah, I don't know. There's really no secret formula. I feel like at this point you got to get lucky. I mean, if they can make saves in juniors, and, you know, they show performance in pressure situations, yeah, great. But, like, who knows, right? So, I mean, stock up on as many of them as you can would be my recommendation.
Well, Ryan Miller, yeah, Ryan Miller was okay.
Yeah, Ryan Miller was okay.
Oh,
right.
But here's
we're
old enough. We're old enough to remember Ryan Miller playing for Michigan State. At least I am.
Found my list.
Was that
end of the 90s? He was at Michigan State.
Oh, so then he went to win a national championship.
I don't believe he did.
Yeah, that's right. Because Jeff Lurg, how's that for history? Jeff Lurg was a national championship goaltender.
He won a Hobie though, didn't he? Didn't Miller win the Hobie?
Yeah. Yeah.
And well, he was good, but like you said, he didn't win a national championship. But somebody and then somebody said Marty Turco was okay. Turco won a national championship. He was part of those back-to-back teams.
That doesn't count. That's before my time.
Turco was a nightmare.
That might even predate.
Fans.
That might predate me as a human, so that doesn't count.
Well, some of us are old.
Okay, here's your last 10 college championship goalies: Krona, DU, Lindbergh, UMass, Shepard, UMD, Jallet, Denver, Johnson, Nodak, Gillies, Providence, Stevens with Union, Malcolm with Yale, and Milner with BC.
Yeah, I mean,
you hear those names, and like, how many of those?
More than half those guys didn't even get NHL deals.
Right.
Stalock didn't win a title, Brever.
And
he was just after, actually.
On the flip side, too, you look at some of these guys who don't necessarily have that great of college careers, but they're bigger frames and they may be drafted, so they get that shot that someone with similar numbers maybe wouldn't. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, you're like, oh, that guy's in the NHL. And so it's just, you know, it's weird how, like I said, it's a crapshoot for goalies, right? And so, yeah, there's two sides of that: people that come out of nowhere and are good college goalies, and people who aren't good college goalies who just their game translates better to the pro game for whatever reason.
Because I think you look at like Spencer Knight and Thatcher Demko, like those guys were pretty much
those
projected blocks.
Right.
I mean, just perfect size, athleticism, calm, good goalies. And then you got like Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman, Cal Peterson. I think those are some of like the next tier of college goalies to make it. But there's not many.
Yeah.
I just wonder if it's that volunteer goalie coach thing. Is it just the style of college hockey?
Well,
I
I
don't know
think
what it is.
I think there's a good chunk of college goalies. I mean, it's pretty well spread over a bunch of different leagues. In fact, I see actually a lot of people um, not happy with how Canada's been able to develop goalies over the last 15 some odd years. But I think there's a strong college hockey presence among NHL goaltenders, but relative to how many goalies there are in college compared to, Finland just and Sweden are pumping out goalies. And in fact, I think US and other countries are trying to kind of take from them their goalie development models because they have been so successful. So yeah, I know USA Hockey has some initiative. It's like 51 and 30.
Uh-oh.
Was it round two?
Little bourbon.
Um,
That's your own talking goalies now. I can sit back and listen.
yeah, drink yourself into a coma. They want to get 51% of the goalies in the NHL by 2030 to be US born. So that's their objective, and it has been for like the last 5 to 7 years. So, yeah,
But it's a crapshoot, Viggs.
totally.
I just wonder about that American development model about how to develop goalies and like what needs to happen.
I think they're doing a good job. I do some coaching around the cities, and I know it wasn't in place when I was younger, but they do a pretty good job around here of having association goalie year so more people can try it out. So it's not like, okay, my kid wants to be a goalie, but I don't think he's sure if he wants to be a goalie. So it's either I tell him he can't play goalie or I have to go dive in with a $3,000 investment that he might not want to do in 2 weeks. So I think that's a good start.
Our association just got a brand new set of like the Bauer Prodigy goalie gear for squirts. And it's like leg pads, chest protector, glove, blocker, light composite stick. And I think it makes the kids definitely more interested in playing. Like, this cool gear. Yeah. I don't have to pay for it. I can just borrow it. Sweet.
Right. Instead of the mismatch from Played Against Sports.
That are super heavy.
Yeah, right. It's a little cooler.
But how much does that little set cost there, Viggs?
It's like a $900 deal that our association picks up, and probably need 2 sets of it for our squirt teams going forward. And we've got the quick change stuff for our mites, and I think that's pretty common for a lot of associations. Yeah. But it's a challenging position to coach just because there's so much about reading the play that's important. Like I asked Close about this last series about St. Cloud, like, what are your mindsets going in? He's just like, just making my reads and trusting my instincts. I do a lot of pre-scout for the power play stuff, so I know that, but it's just trusting it and going with it and staying calm. Just clear your head and trust it. And that's great advice, I think, for any goalie going forward, because he's playing pretty well.
Yeah, it's good advice, but it's also like, what does that mean for someone who's never played goalie, right?
Yeah.
So trust your reads. Well, what do I read?
It's hard to teach. And,
no doubt.
You can teach scenarios and techniques, but it's up to them to put it together.
Totally.
It's a crapshoot. I mean, look at Carl Gehring out of Apple Valley, tiny little goalie. He won that. I think he won that long game between him and Duluth East. Goes to North Dakota, wins the national championship. Tiny little guy, and that's one thing, Viggs. Sometimes it can work in college. Something like a tiny player can work in college, and sometimes you get to the NHL and things don't work.
Saros for Nashville is like one of the few goalies, and he's like super athletic, like very much aggressive, top of his crease. Like when he reads a play, he just commits. And I know, Potter is pretty big on using like those iPads to show what the puck sees. And a goalie like Saros just like, covers it up. Like there's no net to shoot at when he commits. And I think Ryan McKay did that a lot at Minnesota State. It's just like he just attack pucks and just like trusts his read. It's just like a great scorer. He's a great goalie. He can read what the other team wants to do and just takes it away, or he baits them into it and takes it away. That's what great players can do.
Oh, I really thought we had a chance in that game when that went up 1-0 on that play, and boy, Walker shot one through his legs, it got through, and then it bounced out.
It's devastating.
That was a frustrating game.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the third period until Denver figured it out either.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, Mankato was done.
Well, they just kind of panicked a little bit. They got away from their game. So, Eric, are you going to go to any more games? I was a little disappointed to see the student production happen the other night and just have an analyst all by himself. I thought they really could use a color guy for that. Did they even reach out?
I would have gladly. No, they didn't. I didn't even know that was
the USA game. Yeah,
the USA Development
USA
Program game.
Oh, I was out of town anyways, but no, they didn't reach out. That can be my excuse though. But let's see. I'm pulling up the schedule here. I don't see why not. I mean, maybe the Michigan series.
I mean, that should be must-watch Gopher hockey for anyone.
I mean, here's the thing. It's in Madison. Never mind. I was going to say, it's great to go to the Gophers versus Wisconsin, even if Wisconsin's bad, because it's a good series regardless, but they're actually so bad that it's like, do I really want to go watch them play?
I'm going to Madison this year.
Oh, nice.
Juber just wants to bring that sign that says Trader Mo, and he just wants to go up on the glass and be there for warm-ups.
That's hilarious.
Oh, God. Don't remind me of that.
You're going to be that old man on the glass.
Oh. Oh, also now my phone's talking to me. My watch. That was weird. I called him Trader Mo on Twitter, and LaFontaine wasn't really keen on that.
I mean, that's just funny.
That's why I did it.
Yeah.
And you don't care what LaFontaine thinks anyway.
I like Laffer. He was a fun interview.
See him try to go after Subban this week in the AHL?
I did. He got suspended for it too, yeah.
Yeah, because I think his team had pulled the goalie and was doing extra attacker and lost. And then there was a fight at the end of the game, and Subban was in his crease and started drifting into the scrum. And so Laffer gets off the bench and just sprints down, grabs Subban. His helmet comes off. He grabs Subban's helmet, takes it off, and the linesman gets in the way. So, like, no actual punches were thrown, but it was entertaining goalie-on-goalie action.
That's unreal. Love that out of him.
Well, now I have to make a Trader Mo sign, don't I, Viggs?
I mean, it's your life.
I did call it that he was going to get pulled against Minnesota, and he got pulled.
He did. I don't know.
He didn't get a lot, though.
Jared got put in a tough spot. He's had a tough.
His team in front of him was terrible.
Well, he got in a tough spot with Bob too. I don't think he was.
Well, yeah, Bob didn't treat him very well.
No,
put him in bad situations and then threw him under the bus a bunch of times.
Yeah, Eric, how would you feel about that if your coach ripped you after you came in as a backup and didn't do so well? I mean, that can't feel good, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably not an ideal situation. Just tell me. You don't have to tell the media.
just like Klus, you can't tell the media we're playing like shit. So
yeah,
how would you tell the media I'm playing like shit?
No, I think he got a raw deal there because I never thought he was treated very well there, and he kind of was thrown under the bus. And I don't blame him for leaving, but you kind of wonder if he would have known LaFontaine was coming back. Well, he probably knew LaFontaine's coming back, but.
I think Bob just likes a certain demeanor in his goalie, and Jared didn't have it. Like I think Justin Close is the perfect demeanor for Bob.
Yeah. Bob also likes, Bob likes his goalies to just be goalies and just kind of
not be seen, not be heard.
Yeah.
Just, do your thing.
Be seen, not heard, and just kind of lay in the weeds, which I guess that doesn't align with anything that Laffer is. So that kind of doesn't ring true for that. But I guess when you're that good and a leader as well, then that doesn't matter. But for the most part, yeah, I feel like he likes his goalies to just stop the puck, be quiet, and not get in the way.
I remember asking Bob when Laffer left. I was like, "Oh, you're gonna spend a little extra time in the goalie room?" And he kind of looked at me like a "Jess, you crazy" kind of look. He's like, "Goalie room? I don't even want to know where that is."
Yeah,
It's like that is not where I need to be.
I actually don't think I shouldn't say plays it up, because I genuinely think that's how he feels. But he's like, so, coaches are so classic. They're just like, I don't care, just stop the puck. And it's like, all right, relax, dude. Like that's the oldest saying in the book. Like, you got to come up with something more original.
It's like, stop the puck, but don't go play it in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've had some quite interesting situations. Obviously, the whole Frazee thing was.
I don't know if Schierhorn's gonna know that one either.
I know the name. I hate to say this, but I know nothing else about the guy except, isn't he the one who gave up the long shot against Nodak?
St. Cloud.
Or was it St. Cloud? Okay.
Did he give one up against Nodak too?
No, I think it was North Dakota at home. The St. Cloud one was after the whistle. Remember, the period came to the end, and he was screwing around. And he got yanked and yelled at. And the next morning, Viggs was skate with the Gophers. And it was all sorts of awkward with Jeff Frazee that day.
Yeah, I do remember either Gordo or Ryan Patulny was telling me that story one time about how Don was just steaming out of his ears in the St. Cloud one. So I guess he'd already let in a bad goal, or two, maybe even. And is at the end of a period, and they shot the puck, St. Cloud did. And like, the horn had clearly sounded, but he kind of just lackadaisically like threw his leg at it and went in. But it wasn't like, it was too close to be doing that, especially when you already let up a bad goal. And he said Don just lost it.
Well, the other story with him is KSTP did undercover investigation.
Oh, I think it was Channel 9.
Or was it Channel 9?
It was Channel 9.
But they put like an undercover person at like Blarney's.
And that.
And Frazee was drinking Long Island iced teas and just underage and just like yapping up to the undercover reporter. And that was a lot of fun.
That's funny.
So I put him under the microscope.
Yeah. Yeah. College kids underage drinking?
Never.
Have some journalistic integrity.
I remember being at the library years ago, and Danny Ehrman was a freshman handing me drinks because I couldn't get to the bar.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah. Oh, Everson had a long shot of the Don giving Frazee that look.
I would love to see that.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I know. Breaking news. Kids under the age of 21 drink. Yeah. Details at midnight. He just got busted doing it. And,
Details at midnight. Nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
And the thing is, the bars didn't care, because if there was athletes in their bars were full. And they're making a lot of money off of the athletes. So that had to be put to a stop for a while. But like I said, they'll just go drink in their dorms or at the houses. And it's like, Phil the Thrill is part of that too. I don't remember.
I don't remember Phil the Thrill being too engaged.
I thought I remembered it being Phil who was like the main, like, and I would hear about this from Gordo because obviously he was on the team at the time. And I want to say he had a funny story about like the person coming up to Phil and saying something like, "Oh, are you Phil Ketzel?" He's like, "Yeah." Like, "How are you in here? Aren't you underage?" And he said something stupid like, "Well, I'm on the hockey team, so they just let me in."
That's how it was. It just
Pretty
I
funny.
think that's how it was in any college town, though.
Yes.
Like, it's nothing. I mean, maybe at the Medill School of Journalism in Northwestern, they don't do that kind of stuff, but
Yeah,
like every other college town in the country, it is.
Oh boy, which Riley brother blew out his knee walking funny? I'm not sure what that is.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know it either. Yeah, there's been a lot of things happening over the years. You know, from the Booger putting $500 under a hat and getting. Was that from McAlpine? I think it was.
Yep,
Or something like
helping
that?
out the books, and that's one of the reasons why McAlpine didn't get the assistant coaching job a couple of years ago, was because of that stuff. So that was interesting. He's probably making more money as an agent anyway, so it's probably best for everybody.
There's just we've lived through a lot, Eric.
Yeah.
Eric, how's the professional life going as we wrap up? I'm getting close to my.
Oh yeah, it's past 11:30.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. Jupe, I didn't know you're a Jefferson guy. My boss is Jefferson, Ben Clymer. But no, it's great working for him and being around here and, kind of being able to start our next careers with my buddies and my teammates, like I was talking about, going to the game. So it's great. I love it.
Who else are you working with?
I mean, no one that you guys would know, I don't think. But Ben is the boss and part owner of the firm that I work at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is your golf game getting up to Ben's level?
I'm trying. I gotta really. He's a sicko though. He practices 4 times a week. So I'm not. I don't have his drive in golf. I'm definitely competitive and need to work on my game, but I'm not quite at the practice 4 times a week. I lean more towards this is great to go out and have beers with friends.
Yeah, but you played a lot more Gopher games than he ever did.
That's true.
Though he did win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I think that's his trump card.
Works pretty well.
Yeah.
I thought I had a card. No, I don't have that card anymore, but yeah. Well, he was a decent player out of my high school. There was a couple other players I felt were better. So, just me.
Yeah. Well, you guys were a powerhouse back then.
Were.
Veek's
trying to tell me they're getting better, but I'm not buying it, Veeks.
They're getting more numbers. They got a lot of mites, a lot of squirts. So they just got to keep those kids around. Joe Disick did it for Minneapolis hockey. He's keeping kids around, and they were at the state tournament last year. Just got to get that connection going.
All right, guys. I think
Eric,
we've been up late enough
on.
here. Yeah, thanks for coming on again, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's fun.
Appreciate the goalie.
We'll hopefully see you at the rink.
Yeah, I'll come say hi next time I'm at the game.
Well, he's sorry. I was busy. I'm always running around.
There's a lot going on, I'm sure.
Yeah, there is.
A lot of shenanigans.
Hopefully, this past weekend, obviously, there was a lot. I mean, there was a lot going on.
Yeah, no, I know. Hopefully, I'll find my way up into the press box again to fill in for Frank or something. Be great.
You should just say, "Hey, I'll come on for a period." They'll get you on.
Yeah.
Anything to get Micheletti off the air for a period. Let's. Just kidding, Pat.
I like Micheletti on there.
He's crazy.
They're hard on him up there. Yeah.
Oh, they are. Well, yeah, but like I said, he came off that second period. He's like, "We're the most boring fucking period ever." I'm like, "Jeez, Pat, don't say that on the air."
That's kind of why I like him. He's like the old man yelling at clouds thing. It was kind of funny.
Well, he's going to be doing a bunch of Big Ten games.
Yep.
The second half, apparently. Nice. So I bet there's an opening there.
Yeah, he did the game with he did the 6-0 Michigan State, Ohio State game. Yeah. Him and Dan Kelly. The only thing is they did it from the Chicago studio. Which is going to become more common these days. So get used to people, so.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, everyone. Thanks for coming out and staying up with us. There's still 38 people watching us live. So thank all of you for staying on. We appreciate it. You guys all have a great night.